1967 and 1968
Right.
is what we're looking at.
Okay.
And we ended last time in Baumholder. And you were shooting missiles.
Right. Had we talked about my promotion to E7?
We talked about E7.
Okay, I made E7
right.
in Baumholder.
Yeah.
And when I made E7, the job was, I changed my job. I left the control center that was in Baumholder, and I went to a bunker, which is a bunker similar to NORAD.
Right.
It was called the Borfink Bunker, and it was staffed by American Air Force, German Air Force, and American missile batteries.
Right.
And it was a huge control center. It was in a mountain. It was about 20 miles or so from Baumholder.
Right.
So I had to commute from Baumholder to Borfink.
Right.
And I think we were working, and I'm not absolutely sure of the breakdown. It was either 24 hours or 12-hour shifts. And I was an NCOIC of a shift. I think we had 3 shifts, if I recall correctly.
And so you were in charge of one of the shifts.
I was in charge of one of the shifts, and we had our diocese. Now, we controlled the control centers.
Right.
Okay, so we were in communications with all the control centers that were controlling all the batteries that were deployed in Germany.
You ever just want to push the button and see what happens?
You can't push a button. There's no button there. And it's the military at that time was universal in the first thing you do is you learn your trade, whatever your job is, and then you train. And so when you're on duty, you're actually looking for real live events that would cause you to have to deploy missiles or aircraft or whatever.
Right.
But that doesn't happen, but seldom.
Right.
If ever. And so the rest of the time you train and you do mock invasions with different electronics that make everybody do exercises. You print out documents, you validate that the exercise went well or went poorly. You made mistakes. How do we correct the mistakes we made? You get in a big room, everybody briefs on what they did, what their part of the exercise was worth, and then you start it all over again. And so we were in from 1966 to into 1967, and I'm not sure of the dates. I'm not 100% sure of the dates.
Right.
But we were in Baumholder. Mom had just had Utah. Oma had come live with us for a couple of months. She had gone back to Augsburg, and you were in school in Baumholder. And as you go along and count our moves, you can count the number of schools you went to also.
Right.
And I don't remember how many grades you spent in each place. I think a couple of places you got a couple of grades.
Right. Not many.
Not many. No, you went to 6 or 7 different schools.
Yeah.
At least. But that was what we did.
Yeah.
I'm going back and forth. Mom is now no longer working at the cafeteria because she's got Jackie and Utah at home, and Dodie and Oma have gone back, so she's on her own.
So it'd be fair to say they were a burden.
No, they were helpful.
I'm not talking about Oma and Dodie.
Oh,
I'm talking about Jackie and Utah.
No. So and we did that until sometime in 1967.
Right.
In 1967, I get called to say they're putting me up for promotion. And I'd only been an E7 for 6-8 months, maybe, which I was a little bit on the surprise side.
Right.
Not bad surprise, but that I was going up for another promotion.
Right.
Because if you recall, my first 4 years in the military were mostly promotion void.
Right.
It took me 4 years to make E4,
Right.
and we're 8 years later, and I'm going up for an E8 board. And again,
Right.
the same process that we talked about before is at the 32nd Air Defense Command.
Right.
That was our division located in
Right.
Kaiserslautern. And again, I think there's only 3 or 4 people up for the E8 promotion. It wasn't as crowded as the E7 promotion. And so I go to report to the board, and lo and behold, the president of the board is Major Andrew J. Sullivan.
Same guy that was.
The same guy
For the
was president of the
E7.
board for E7. But this one's a little different because he's selecting the person. This E8 position works for Andrew Sullivan in the public affairs office
Right.
at the division level. So whoever he selects or gets the other 2 guys to agree with him to select is going to work for him. Now, I don't know if I go back in time, if he remembered me.
Hadn't been that long since he saw you.
And had anything at all to do with me going before the board again. I have no
Right.
idea how I got there. Had conversation with it afterward, never mentioned it. So
Right.
I just think I got sent up there. When I got there, he recognized me. We went through the same promotion board exercise, got asked a bunch of questions by the 3
Right.
members of the board. I had not stopped going to school or
Right.
doing correspondence courses. As a matter of fact, I accelerated doing correspondence course because I was working shift work. So I'm in the middle of the night. I have time to read and
Right.
answer questions and stuff. So my number of points went up a little bit when I go before the board, and I get selected as the person who's going to make E8. So this is 1967. So 8
Right.
years from the time I made E4, I made E8.
So nothing for 4 years, and
Yeah.
then it was one after the other.
One after the other. And I'm 29 years old.
So is that sergeant major? Is that what the
No.
E8 is? What is that?
It's an E8. You can be an E8 just on a staff position,
Right.
or you can be a first sergeant. A first sergeant is an E8.
Okay.
The difference is the E8 without being first sergeant is the stripes have 3 up, 3 down,
Right.
and nothing in the middle.
Right.
First sergeant has 3 up, 3 down, and a diamond in the middle.
Right.
Anyway, so now my duty position
Right.
changes. So now I'm no longer working in Baumholder. I have to go work in Kaiserslautern. And Kaiserslauten's 30 or 40 miles, 30 miles
Right.
from Baumholder.
Another big military base at the time.
Kaiserslautern was huge, and I think
Yeah.
it's still huge. Just in the vicinity of Kaiserslautern was Kaiserslautern, which had a
Right.
lot of military there. Landstuhl was the hospital, a major hospital, still a major hospital. Guys from Afghanistan and Iraq, when those wars were going on that were severely injured, were evacuated to Landstuhl.
Right.
And Ramstein Air Base is right next to Kaiserslautern.
Right.
And Ramstein is still a major air base for the United States and Europe. And they still do a lot of activities through that part of
Right.
through Ramstein to go to different parts of the world. So now I'm commuting back and forth to Kaiserslautern. And of course, you have to go on a list to get quarters, and we had to wait till we got.
Right.
The good news is we didn't move into temporaries. We moved directly from our apartment in Baumholder to an apartment in Kaiserslautern.
Without temporary quarters.
Without temporary quarters. So I think it's moved 13,
Right.
something like that, 13, 14, somewhere in that neighborhood. And we moved to Kaiserslautern. So you changed schools.
Right.
So now you're going to Kaiserslautern. And my job is public affairs. We're all over Europe. We're not like a division that's in 2 or 3 cities.
Right.
The bulk of people. The troops are in two or three cities. We had people all across Germany because we're missile batteries. So you have a battery-sized unit, 150, 180 people,
Right.
all over Europe. So one of the requirements was every day we'd have to look at the incident list, the blotter
Right.
from the military police that we collected in our public affairs office to see if there was any incidents from our troops anywhere in Germany that
Right.
needed to be addressed by the command. And so we'd always go through the blotter and see how many crimes that were
Right.
active. And most of the time, I didn't get involved in that other than reviewing the blotter and
Right.
putting together these are the things that have happened. And then if something was going wrong, then Sullivan would get involved, and depending on what the severity of the incident was, who else in the division got involved.
Right.
Also, we had a newspaper. We published a newspaper once a month. And so I had a couple of guys there that actually were reporters, were newspaper reporters.
Right.
Chrism was one of the guys' name. He was actually from Dallas, Texas, and had worked on the Dallas Morning News.
Oh,
And he
okay.
was drafted.
Right.
And there was another guy that was working there. His name was Spurlock, his last name. When he got out of the service, he moved to Dallas. He worked for the Dallas Morning News or one of the news
Oh,
stations
okay.
and got murdered.
Oh,
Because when I come back, I got a hold of Criswell
yeah.
and just say, hey, I'm out of the service. I'm living in
Yeah.
Dallas. We never got together, but
Right.
we talked. But he told me that Spurlock had gotten murdered.
What happened to him? I mean, got murdered. How?
Well,
was
he's doing some things with drug dealers, and I didn't
Oh.
get into the specifics, and he
Yeah.
didn't know the specifics. As far as he knew, they never solved the crime.
Unsolved, huh?
As far as he knew. I mean,
Right.
obviously we could look it up and see if
Right.
they ever solved that murder, and they had to be back. We're talking 60. They had to be
70s.
back in the 70s when
Yeah.
when that occurred. And then we did another thing because we're related to the press.
Right.
We had a German who worked in our office. I don't remember his name. And he was a link between the press, the German press, and us. And you know, we got along good. My German was pretty good. I could read.
Right.
I mean, I could read the newspapers. I couldn't read them like fluently, but if I
Right.
sat there and read a newspaper, I knew what the gist of the story was. I mean, I had enough knowledge in German to
Right.
read that and understand what was in there slowly,
Right.
but I could get to what the story was about. And this was just like in Augsburg, when I was with OPA, I would go out to Frühschoppen.
Right.
We'd go out. In Germany, it was Sunday morning.
Right.
Because when I was in the Army, and even up until then, I believe, we worked 5.5 days a week. And the Germans work 5.5 days a week. Mom, when she worked for Wessels, she worked Saturday mornings. So we all work 5.5 days a
Right.
week.
Now explain what Frühschoppen is.
Frühschoppen is the men of the family go out to a local bar and have a couple of beers and play cards, or have political discussions about what's going on
Right.
in the community, the state,
Right.
whatever you happen to. So the Frühschoppen that I went to in Augsburg, the guys wanted to play cards and drink beer.
But it's on Sunday morning.
In Augsburg, it was
Yeah.
on Sunday morning.
Right.
Okay. When we got to Kaiserslautern, and I started going to Frühschoppen with, and I think Frühschoppen is an Augsburg word. Stammtisch, I believe, is what they use in the rest of Germany, and it's the same thing.
Right.
You go drink whatever
Right.
you drink, but we did it on Saturday morning, so it was really a work day
Right.
for most people at that time.
Yeah. When you say we, who are you talking about?
Sullivan asked me to go with him to these Stammtisch things,
Right.
and there was a Catholic priest, a Monsignor, and I need to see if I can look it up and find out what his name is. You were his altar boy.
Right.
On Sundays, you served mass
Right.
for him. But anyway, I think he was an Irish guy also. So here you have Sullivan, whatever his name, and Boyle. And so you go to Stumpdish and you sit around. This is the Kaiserslautern newspaper guys and some people
Right.
from other areas, but they came to Stumpdish and you sit down and, you know, you have beer and you have discussions and you talk about stuff. And, you know, more often than not, you get shit faced. And after you stay a couple hours and then you go home and have lunch. And if they were like me, sometimes I miss lunch and went right to nap. But we did that. And so publishing the newspaper, and the guys in the newspaper said, you know, everything you see is not real. Because there'd be an accident that somebody got severely hurt.
Right.
And obviously we didn't have the picture of the accident, but these guys would go to a junkyard. We had a really good photographer and they would stage the accident. So they'd have a picture of an accident in our newspaper, in our division newspaper, but it wasn't actually the accident that occurred.
It was just something they staged.
It was something staged, but they were not faking the story. They were faking the picture that was the story. And, you know, then you learn that when you read a news article, it's an upside down triangle. Okay. Most of the story is in the first couple of sentences of the story.
Right.
And as you go down, it gets weaker and weaker in terms of what you're talking about. So if you're an astute guy and can remember what you're reading, you can read a whole lot more and get a lot more out of the paper than reading the whole story. Because and once you get past the top of it, it's just somebody,
filler.
Yeah, somebody talking to you.
Yeah.
And so we did that. 67, 68. And I don't remember the dates, the times. I think we did it for a year.
From the middle of 67 to the middle of 68.
Yeah, because sometime in that period, Sullivan went to Vietnam. He got transferred to Vietnam. He got orders to go to Vietnam. And I think the guy at placed him was Lieutenant Colonel Frost, which he was a good guy too. He was really stand up. He was a lieutenant colonel.
Right.
But this really sharp and I think was a good replacement for Sullivan because Sullivan had a personality. And then we got orders. At that time you could only stay in Germany 4 years.
Right.
You know, the first tour.
So now we're in 68.
Right.
Okay.
So in the first time I went to Germany, I went from August 55 to roughly July, June 59.
Right.
So I could only stay 4 years because I extended for a year.
Right.
This time we go back and I stay 4 years. I extend and stay the 4 years because, again, mom wants to be home, see her mom and her sister.
Right.
And we get orders to go back to the United States in 68. And at that time, you could ask to go back by a ship, not troop carrier, but by a luxury liner.
Right.
And the one that you could request for us was USS United States. And so I said, hey, let's do it. Let's try. And I put in a request for us to go back on a ship. And we got it. Again, I don't remember, but, you know, we get on the train. We go to Baumholder. We get on the boat.
Bremerhaven.
Right. We go to Bremerhaven. We get on the boat. And the cabin's big enough. I think there's bunk beds and, you know, another bigger bed. We had enough space for all five of us. Jackie was unhappy as hell because she was leaving Germany. That's really, from the time she could start remembering, that's the only thing she knew. Yuta was still a baby.
Right.
And you figured out, working with the cabin guy who was running the cabin, that, hey, you don't have to do anything but just let me know what you want and you get it. Ice cream, fruit, whatever you wanted. And so when dinner time would come or meal time would come, you'd say, I'll get mine here. And Mom and I would take Utah and Jackie, go eat. Jackie wouldn't eat because she was so angry with us. And you were living a good life.
Room service.
Room service the whole time.
I have flashes of memory of the ship,
Yeah.
right? The theater,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. So it was a nice ride. Hit some really, really rough water, like you see in the movies.
Right.
The waves are coming over the front of
right?
the ship. Mom wasn't feeling great, and she went to bed with the girls. You and I went to the movies. You weren't sick. I wasn't sick. I think
Right.
you and I were the only one in the movie theater.
Just
It
the
might have
two of
been,
us, huh?
there might have been one or two other people there, but
Yeah.
we're the only ones. And I think the movie we saw was My Name Is Nobody,
Right.
or Nobody Is My Name. I
Right.
don't remember
Right.
which way it was. That was funny as hell.
Yeah.
Um, and then, we land in New York.
Now, with this ship, like you've been on cruises since then,
Right.
did it have shows and stuff on there that you recall?
I don't recall.
Any gambling?
We didn't go there. I don't recall. We didn't go there.
All right.
We hung out with you guys and did stuff with you guys. Mom and I, we're always in the cabin or someplace with you guys. And like I said, a couple of days you weren't going anywhere.
Just because of the weather.
Yeah, you're hanging
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Took us 5 days to cross the Atlantic on the United States. Took us 10 days to cross the Atlantic on the Randall. So it was a lot faster.
Right.
And then we got back and we're stationed in this is 1968. We're stationed in Connecticut.
Right.
I've been assigned to be an advisor to the National Guard. And my duty station was going to be Hartford, Connecticut.
Right.
And we had a temporary. We lived somewhere temporarily because we didn't have any furniture and stuff.
Right.
So this is roughly 14.
Right.
But there was housing available when we were able to get our personal belongings, what we'd shipped and what we'd stored.
Right.
When we went from
Boston.
Boston, when we stored stuff in Boston, and then we shipped stuff from Germany. So we had to wait till it all arrived. That took several weeks. We were living
Right.
in temporary housing. And then we moved into the house we moved into. I said earlier, like in Beverly, Massachusetts, they were housing for the missile sites.
Right.
Well, they were housing for missile sites in Connecticut, and a lot of the missile sites had been closed.
Right.
Or they were being run by the National Guard. So we got a house in Plainville, Connecticut, that
Right.
was one of the houses that belonged to one of the missile sites at one time. And we lived there the whole time we were in Connecticut. So you're going to another school.
Yeah. Now, as a National Guard advisor, what did you do? I mean, what was your job when you got to Connecticut?
Okay, well, so the primary job was to attend drill, which was once a month. In my case, there were several batteries, so I would go to different locations, and they weren't always on the same weekend. So usually I'd have something to do most weekends.
Right.
And then you would go with them with the batteries to El Paso when they would go their annual 2 weeks, and they would fire the missiles, actually, or train to fire the missiles at McGregor Range. And I was given a duty of being the advisor to the NCO school for the state of Connecticut's non-commissioned officer school. They were training guys in the Guard, and that would be a 2-week training session, which I would go down to the coast of Connecticut.
Right.
And they had a fort down there, a small place. At wooden barracks like we had at Fort Knox. They were only 1 story, not 2 story. And they had a sergeant major they had an E9. I think he was a command sergeant major, was running the school,
Right.
but he was a part-time guy.
Right.
And I worked with him to help form what they were going to train the non-commissioned officers and how we work leadership
Right.
exercises and those things. And I did that, I think, 2 summers I went down there with them. And so your job was to make absolutely sure that people were attending drill or summer camp.
Right.
Because at that time it was
Vietnam,
and it was still going pretty strong. And a lot of people were using the National Guard as a means to not get drafted and sent to Vietnam. And there was some fraud going on where people
Right.
had friends who signed them up for the National Guard, but they never attended the drills and they just didn't do what they were being asked to do
Right.
and what qualified them to be exempt from the
draft.
draft. But to my knowledge, no National Guard or reserve units were called up to go to Vietnam, which was not true for Iraq and
Right.
Afghanistan. An additional duty that we had were to notify families when someone got killed in Vietnam.
You're the guy that knocks on the door.
You're the guy who walks up in uniform. They can see you coming.
How
Yeah.
hard was that?
That's probably the hardest job I've ever had. I mean, we when I started, they said we got to have a 2-man rule. You got to go in twos. But we were stationed as individuals, and so you had to go look for somebody. If we got notified, we had to make a notification.
Right.
Then you had to start looking around to find somebody that would go with you.
Right.
And that was harder than saying, well, what's the worst thing that can happen to me if I go out there and do this on my own?
Right.
And so I just decided that if you have a notification and you can't find anybody to do it, I'll do it. Not particularly wanted to do
Right.
it, but I thought I was compassionate enough that I did it right.
Right.
And I want most people recognize the difficulty of delivering that message.
Right.
I mean, I know it was hard for them.
Right.
And, but a few of them blame me, for
Right.
their kid being in the Army and getting killed.
Right.
And you say, okay, and they tolerate that. You give them the message, and
Right.
basically most of those people don't want you around, you leave. But you find a whole lot of people that wanted you to stay and wait till other people came and so they could talk
Right.
about the Army, their kid, and I did that when they asked me to. We weren't supposed to,
Right.
but I did it. I mean, we're supposed to deliver a message and leave.
Right.
I deliver the message, and if you didn't want me there and I could feel that, I'd leave. But if I get there and the mom's by herself and can you help me call my husband, my kids,
Right.
can you stay? Yeah, okay, whatever you need. The other thing that we did, we notified them that there would be a survivor's assistance officer contacting them. And the survivor's assistance officer was a guy who was going to help them navigate through all the burial and insurances and other things that they had the right to receive
Right.
from the military for losing a loved one in this line of duty.
I got a note here that about mom going to work.
Yeah, at some point in time, and I'm not sure how. Sometime mom decided she was going to go to work again, and she went to work for a factory that was making 20mm shells.
Right.
And again, this is your mother. If somebody has to do something, then need their hands to be the ability to be quick, accurate. That was her. I mean, she can do anything. She still can do anything with her hands. It's amazing. The one of the things that go back to doing the attendance issue is in the National Guard, they have full-time people,
Right.
and a lot of the full-time people are first sergeants of the unit. They do most of the administrative stuff. They keep all the records.
Right.
They make sure people show up for what they're supposed to show up for.
Right.
And as an advisor, you work with these guys closely.
Right.
They're senior non-commissioned officer, you're senior non-commissioned
Right.
officer, and the job is to help them do what they have to do it right.
Right.
Um, there's things that they go to the range. We go to rifle range. It's local. It's not,
Right.
and you can do that on the weekend. Well, if you've been in the military, you know how a firing range works. So you go down there and make sure they're doing all the safety requirements that they have, and they're following the
Right.
rules to run the range. And then your job is to show up at morning formation when the drill starts, and they do a roll call to make sure everybody who's supposed to be at drill is at drill.
Right.
And you sign off on the roll call. I was present. These people all answered here.
Right.
Now, could somebody holler here
For somebody else.
for somebody else? You bet your butt. But if you're standing there looking,
Right.
you hollered here once, dude.
Yeah.
And most of the people were thankful they were in the National Guard and not, they were going to do what they're going to
Right.
do. I didn't run into any issues with the
Right.
National Guard. But there was one of the first sergeants who he got indicted for allegedly committing fraud and counting people present that weren't present. And it ended up going to a federal court in Hartford, Connecticut. I was stationed in Hartford.
Right.
I mean, that was my duty station. So the full colonel was the guy who advised the state.
Right.
He asked me to go to the trial, take notes, anything that was going on, because
Right.
it's going to impact us
Right.
if it's not done. If we screwed up, because
Right.
he wanted to know before the rest of the world knew.
Right.
And so I went to the trial. And it was a federal trial, and it was a judge had been a federal judge, but he took no prisoners. And I might have this incorrect, but as I remember, you couldn't come in his courtroom without a necktie on.
Right. That was a rule for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. And so you had to be. Well, I was in dress uniform, so it wasn't an issue for me. And one of our advisors, Casey Vidocq,
Right.
and I remember Casey, his wife, they lived in the same housing area we lived in.
She played the harmonica.
His wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I still have it.
And she passed away.
Yeah.
Brain aneurysm or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
A nice family. They had a couple of kids. I think one of them was your age.
Right.
Nice family. Really nice family. And Casey's wife was German. So mom
Yeah.
got to be friends with her.
Right.
Anyway, Casey goes, if I remember correctly, Casey was in World War II, in Vietnam, and Korea. He had a lot of ribbons on his chest. And he was a hell of a soldier. And I say he was a nice guy and a nice family. And he was a witness. I believe he was a witness for the defense. And so I might not have this right,
Right.
but I think the sequence was that he got called by the defense counsel.
Right.
And he got questioned about the accuracy of his roll call,
Right.
saying the same thing that we just discussed somebody else could say here.
Right.
In case he said nobody else could say here when I'm doing roll call with somebody. I make sure the person who said here is standing here. I've been a soldier for a long time. You do it the Army's way. I mean, so he went through the drill that no,
Right.
I'm 100% sure that it's 100% accurate, and defense happy with his testimony, says no more questions. Prosecutor gets up. The prosecutor gets up and he's going to question Casey's integrity. Well, the guy couldn't have made a bigger mistake. He starts asking him questions about how could he be sure that these people were in the at the drill, when there's so many people and it's a lot of chaos, and Casey had already briefed the defense when he was questioned by the defense. Right. And so the guy got to finish asking the questions, and Casey said, well, obviously you have a problem with the English language. Now Casey's pissed. Right. And he's got a booming voice anyway. And so the courtroom is sort of
vibrating.
Right. And Casey said, you obviously don't understand English. I just explained it to this court, and my statement doesn't changing, so I'm not going through it again. Do you understand me? And the guy didn't answer. Do you understand me? That lasted, that his tour of duty on the stand was very short.
Well, they got him off. Huh?
They dismissed him pretty quick. And the guy got acquitted.
Not guilty.
Not guilty. And I'm 100% certain that it was Casey Vidoc's testimony.
Right.
That
got him acquitted. Right, and that takes us to the end of 68.
That takes us to the end of 68. I think, it takes us to the end of 68. Yeah.